Hey, how's it going? What's up? Hey, hello. What's going on, guys? My name is Jessica. I know. I've taken a really long time off making videos, but there's actually a really good reason. So I started making videos last year. I probably had like 4, 5, 6 of them, whatever. And I knew that I loved making them, but I also knew that something just like was not working. I knew exactly what that was too, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to make that kind of change. Basically, for a long time, I've been wanting to just openly talk about my faith in my videos. Honestly, the reason that I didn't really do that is because I was afraid of what people would think of me. But as the Lord has really been putting things on my heart, I know that now is kind of the time. I know that growth comes in the uncomfortable. And I've been listening to a lot of Havilah Cunnington recently. Something that she said really stood out to me. She said, you have to get comfortable telling your story because that is where your power is. And I was like, you're right. With that said, I want to get comfortable talking about my faith on this channel, and I think the best way to start is to be able to just talk about my testimony. It's not meant to be a sob story. It's something that's very personal to me. And at times you're probably gonna look at me like I have two heads, and that's okay. And as a disclaimer, I am not an expert on theology. It's actually something that I'm really trying to work on and get better, and I want to be able to do on this channel and learn along with you guys. In addition, I've never told this story and like my testimony in full to anybody. I think everybody has kind of gotten like bits and pieces of things that I like wanted to share. This is actually very hard for me. Although I'm like super energized right now, that might change. If you choose to stick all the way through, thank you so much. But if you don't want to, I totally understand. I kind of have a short attention span myself, so you can check out. It's okay. Won't take it personally. I'm terrible. So I grew up in a Christian home. My mom was a music minister at a Catholic church. My dad was a part of like a group that they kind of started together at that church. So I was lucky enough that from a young age, I had like Christian values instilled into my life. The first time I had like a small encounter with God, it was the day that my brother John got like radically saved. I was in the very front row at this church that my mom had brought us to. I was probably about 5 years old. I remember the music playing and looking towards the front and just feeling like this, something I can't describe going on like in my heart, and I just felt myself wanting to cry, and I started crying, and something just told me to like look behind me, and I looked behind me and my brother is like completely like on the floor, over the edge of the pew, like just like weeping. My brother's life completely changed that day. Jump forward again, life happened, and then in the summer of 7th grade, by this time my brother John was preaching and serving the Lord. He was actually preaching at this service and he wanted us to come to it. Me being just like a regular middle schooler, I did not want to go. All I remember, praise and worship music started playing, and the next thing I know, it was like something hit me. I was overcome with like, I really have no idea how to describe it. It hit me and I just could not stop weeping. I was weeping in my seat. And not like I was like weeping tears of like sadness. It was like I was crying because I was so happy. I felt so loved. I was also feeling like everything that ever broke God's heart was breaking my heart. I remember making my way up to the altar and just like crying at the altar, and people were like praying over me, and I look up and my brother's on the stage. He looks down at me and points to me and like smiles. Like he knew exactly what was going on. So for a while in middle school, I was like that Jesus girl that everybody knew. And as I got a little older, things started to change. I started to just think about things a little more. I was just growing up, and I was also going into high school. And when I was 14 years old, my world completely changed. My mom got sick. She pulled me onto the porch, and I remember because that night I had actually like overheard her and my dad talking about like how long she had left to live, and like I didn't hear the whole conversation, so I had to go that whole school day like not knowing what was going on with my mom. And so when she finally pulled me onto the porch later that day, I was like, so what's going on? She was like, well, basically the doctors gave me 4 years left to live. And I was like, great. She's like, what? I was like, that's 4 years. Like, I have so much time. You're gonna get to see me graduate high school. Like, I was actually thrilled to hear that she had 4 years. Little did I know, and little did she know, it was only gonna be like 3 or 4 months. So it progressed really quickly. You know, losing my mom, that was a lot to overcome. And I have 2 older brothers. I have a little sister. My older brothers were moved out. Suddenly it was like I had to become the mom. And granted, yes, I have a dad, a very loving dad, but After my mom passed away, his world really changed because he didn't really know how to parent girls. I did my very best to like keep my faith throughout that whole thing and even after. But as I continued in high school, I started just to question things more. And although like in my heart, like I knew like God was real, my brain wouldn't believe it. But look at all this other stuff. Look at all these reasons why like you don't exist. All this other stuff makes so much sense to me, therefore you don't exist. Yet I have this feeling in my heart and I couldn't forget that day that happened to me when I was younger. I didn't know it at the time, but like my mom's passing and my dad's like kind of confusion set me up for some issues. So my freshman year of college, basically somebody had sensed that insecurity in me. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of, and I really hurt some people. So I ended up leaving that school, going back home, and that was around the time my dad started talking to somebody else, which, without going into too much detail, that person ended up being a complete fraud. But if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made the decision to stay in Florida for this internship that I ended up taking. So I moved to Florida. I actually get introduced to a really good church, and it was nice to kind of just like start believing again. But I wasn't completely committed to the Lord. So after I turned 21, I wanted to be just like everybody else. I wanted to party, I wanted to drink, I wanted to fit in. So it was around this time that I started really getting involved in like the music festival scene. I honestly don't even remember how it started, but I got really, really into it for a long time. This is the part where it gets really hard to talk about, but it's one of the biggest parts of my testimony. So one day, one of my friends and I at the time, we decided to drive to a music festival together. We went through a pretty well-known club and like promoters and all that, so we were under the assumption that like everything was like really well prepared and things would be great. Towards the end of the night at the festival, we knew that we should be heading back to like our base soon, and we're like, okay, let's go head back. We have plenty of time before the bus leaves. So I get a call from one of the girls that we were with, and she was like, hey, where are you guys? And I was like, we're walking back, where are you? She's like, the bus left. We're like, it's not even time yet. Like, we headed back early on purpose because we didn't want to miss the bus. Mind you, no Ubers, no taxis, no anything like that can come through. We are like in the middle of this grassland in Georgia. Like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get home? We didn't have an overnight pass. So I call back the girl. She gives me 3 phone numbers of people that she knew that I could call in order to get a ride home, or in order to get a ride back to her hotel. I call the first phone number, no answer. I call the second phone number, no answer. I called the third phone number and there was an answer. And I basically just told this person like, hey, I'm a friend of blah blah. She said that you would be willing to give us a ride. Oh yeah, like no problem. Sounded super friendly. Little did I know that she had met him that day. So me and my friend are like, great, we meet him for a ride, and it was like a car, rather like a van of about like 10 guys and a girl. I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with this, but I'm like, what other choice do I have? So I got in the car with my friend. When I got into that car, they drugged me and my friend very badly. They were being very, very sneaky about this. I managed to figure out that I had been drugged. And I will be very honest and say that day at the music festival, I had taken an ecstasy way earlier, like hours before. Like I was in the process of sobering up. Luckily, I had actually been paying attention. I was looking out the window and I had realized that we were going the wrong way. Like I didn't recognize the signs pointing back to downtown Atlanta, and they had separated me and my friend, so my friend was at the front of the van and I was in the back. Her phone was dead. I had to be bold and basically say out loud to her that I thought we were going the wrong way. By the grace of God, that morning I had purposely like charged up my phone all the way and told myself, I'm gonna keep this on airplane mode all day just in case of an emergency. I put on my GPS and confirmed that we were going the wrong way, and when the guy next to me noticed that I was like picking up on something, and I specifically remember that the guy next to me said something to the guide in the very front seat like in a different language, and the guy in the front seat spoke back in English and said, yeah, right after we raped them behind the gas station. And I heard it. You know, I knew we were in deep trouble. God was with me in that van, because the second that I realized I'd been drugged, I fought to remain in control. I'm like, you're not gonna let this take over. You're not gonna let this take over. Long story short, they didn't expect my phone still to work, and they didn't expect me to be so alert and sober given the amount of drugs that they had already given me. And they turned around and took us back to their hotel, where I had to be sneaky and call an Uber and get in the Uber and get back to my hotel. I remember getting back to the hotel and being just like so incredibly shaken up. My friend and I, we could hardly speak. We were so scared. Like we were absolutely terrified. And we get back to the hotel and we told like the people in the room like what had happened, and I decided I wanted to take a shower because I just felt so disgusting. And I was in the shower when I decided to turn, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I couldn't even do it. Like I couldn't even do it. Like my eyes from the drugs were just like, were blackened. I couldn't even see the colored part in my eyes anymore. I think people understand like what it does to a person to be surrounded by not just one person that has bad intentions for you, but like 10. How do you learn to trust anyone again after that? There is so much more to that story I could say. Praise the Lord, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Like I got out of that. And me being me, like wanted to bounce back to my normal self. I wanted to be happy again, and I was like, okay, like right around that time, right before I left to that trip, I had actually just started talking to somebody. That was gonna end up being an emotionally abusive relationship with like a toxic narcissist. The red flags were there, okay, they were definitely there. And the abuse was always really subtle, but it was very consistent, like little jabs every single day. And if I spoke up about the teasing, I was overthinking it, or it was all in my head. And I got so used to walking on eggshells around this person that I completely lost my personality. And then one day you just wake up and you don't have any self-esteem, and you don't understand why, because you were taught to believe that you were the problem. That relationship drained me of any esteem that I had left. It was like back-to-back manipulation, and I was like, what is happening? After we finally ended things, I like spiraled into like a really deep depression. I woke up every single day hating who I was. And because of like how this person kind of trained me, they got me on like emotional highs and emotional lows. And so my body actually got used to that rhythm. So like when I had a good day, I had a really, really good day. But then when I had a bad day, it was like the lowest of the lowest of the low. Bear in mind, I was going back to church through all of this, the Church of 1122, like you very much. So I just ran back to the place that I only knew where to go. Straight back to the foot of the cross. I was sitting in the back of the church during service, and I remember looking at the front and looking at the cross, and I said, God, I am never doing life apart from you ever again. Ever, ever, ever again. And it's not to say that since I committed my heart to the Lord that my life has just been like amazing, like overnight, like no. And thank goodness, because it has been a walk, and there has been like the meaningful things that has happened every step of the way. There's so many things that I've been able to begin to let go of. The shame of my past, the insecurity, forgiving the people that hurt me. The song that has practically been my anthem since I first heard it is Reckless Love by Bethel Music, because it basically puts all the words into my mouth that I have been looking for to describe how I feel since God has redeemed me. It says, oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, he chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. I just want to read something to you guys real quick. I'm starting at Luke 15 verse 4. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. How amazing is it to know that God will leave the 99 every time. I thought that like I could outrun God. Like what I interpreted as my bad experience was actually His grace, because it was Him trying to draw near to me that whole time. What He has done in my life and like what He has done for me like on the inside, the best way to describe it is like I imagine this like statue, this like beautiful statue. It's been a little rusted, there's like mold on it. As I've really recommitted my heart to the Lord, it's like God has this little chisel and He just sits there and it's like boop, 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 and gets all the yucky stuff off, because He saw me in my brokenness and goes, no, 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 you aren't just like this old statue. Like He wants to restore me back to the condition that He has always seen me in. Even when I was broken, He saw me that way. He's chiseling those things away so I can see it. Anyways, that's a big part of how I want to use this channel. I want to continue to speak God's words into my own heart, into the hearts of others. I have seen the fruit of how God has changed my life from the inside out. I know if I want to start talking about the Lord, I have to be bolder, I have to be more confident in this, but hey. So I would love if you guys would follow along with me. If you liked this video, please let me know. If you didn't, that's okay too. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe, because that will encourage me to be able to make more of these. I'm like, oh, people are actually kind of listening. Cool. I cannot wait for what 2018 is gonna bring. Thank you so much. My name is Jessica. Have a splendid week, and I'll see you next time. I love you guys. Okay, bye-bye.